Alright, I'm sitting here working on Han Solo. Now, if you look at the back of it, I got all the fibers wired in finally. Okay? All of them are wired in finally. And all the wires are here. This is the temporary wiring job. I can cut the wires, make them neat, hot glue them down, epoxy glue them down, whatever. But the big deal is the fibers are done. I don't like how some of the fibers are running right in here. Okay, I'm looking at for myself, not on the camera. I don't like how some of the fibers are running across this part. This box bothers me. So I might take a screwdriver to it and remove part of this box and chomp on it and get that switch out of there. Because I really didn't like that switch and I'm not using it anymore. But right now what we're here to do is I have a USB cable I chopped apart. And I want to do a power test on USB with this. Okay? There's no switch, and I don't plan on putting a switch on here. This is going to go in the movie room. The movie room has motion detected lights and kick on. And there's some red LED rope lights in there that kick on and run for a little while. A couple of hours. They don't consume much power. So when you walk in, the overhead lights come on. 10 minutes later, the overhead lights go off, but the LED lights stay on for a couple of hours. It's all tied to a motion detector. I've got a SmartThings hub, and it does it all for me, and it's real easy to set up. But this is going to go in there and get plugged in with the LED rope lights, and I want to run it off USB power. And I want to get a couple other things done and run them off USB power as well. We're not completely done with the lighting because I still have to do this part right here, but this will be a proof of concept. Now behind Han Solo, I have a USB hub back here. I use it to charge my phone up here, and plug speakers in, and a few other things. Okay? It's more than adequate for powering this. That thing would charge my tablet pretty quickly, amongst other things. I'm going to go ahead and plug this USB cable into it. Now I got to make sure I don't short this thing, and that's important because I don't want to short my power supply out. I've already stripped the ends of it. It's got red and black on the ends of it, and that tells me which one is positive and which one's negative. And all I have to do is touch it, and you can see Han Solo's lighting up. Okay? Now let's do the back side of this thing. But the point being is USB does provide more than enough power to power this, and that's what I wanted to see. So right here. And we can see the back side is lighting up. And if I turn it to the side here, you'll be able to see the side is lighting up as well. You can see some of the fiber optics are lighting up on the side. This isn't the pretty fun side, unfortunately. This is one didn't get too many LED lights. The other side has most of them. But we can see the USB power supply is going to work. So up next, I have to get let me unplug this because I don't want anything short and burning up my USB port over there. Up next is I got to get this carved out and the light box on that. I got to solder up the USB port I want to use and find a mounting spot for that. I already figured out that I'm going to mount it through the battery box that was on the back of this anyhow. That way I don't have to really carve into it, and there's a cover I can put over it so I can unplug the USB port and put the cover back on it, and it's going to hide it. So I've got that figured out. I got to find out where I put that thing, where I put the power supply. But anyhow, everyone, I just want to do an update. I've got all the fibers done. I got most of the LEDs wired in. I got one more LED to wire in. This thing's progressing. It's almost done. I should have it done by the end of next week, actually. So these videos will start showing up really soon. I'll talk to you all later. Bye. Alright, everyone. I'm working on the final steps of Han Solo here. All the fibers are run. They're all lit. This is the last thing. I have to remove this square here. What I've been doing, I'm using my Tamiya handy drill. This thing. And I'm putting it in a spot. And drilling a hole through. Enough holes, then they're pretty easy to connect and carve out. I'm trying to stay inside this border here, so the resin replacement part can just slip right up in. Okay, and use the border as a boundary. Sorry if I seem out of breath a little bit. I had major surgery a week ago. All right, but anyhow, you see what's going on. I'm gonna go ahead and shut this down and finish drilling out all these little holes around the side. And then I gotta work on the resin replacement piece. I didn't need that falling on the floor. There's the resin replacement piece. I've got it carved down somewhat to this boundary right here. But I need it inside the boundary so I can slide it in place and replace that with a green lens. And then I'm going to form a black light box around it on the inside and put a green LED in it so it glows pretty green. It'll be the only green on the whole thing. Once that's done, I can start working on power, and this will be done. Talk to you all later. All right, folks, been working on the Han Solo and Carbonite, and you can see my phone sitting there. It's almost done, fortunately. I finally bit my tongue, got some courage, and carved that out. I drilled holes all around the outside and then filed it down to where I wanted it. Looks a little rough around the edges, but the resin piece is going to cover most of that. And there's the resin cast piece. Okay. Now, there's a little lip around the cutout here. And I left the lip on this so it has a place to glue on. It actually will sit in there somewhat. And when I made my mold for the resin, the Oyamaru didn't sit right. But you can see that's going to sit okay. Especially if I get the glue on it right and get it in there right the first time. I'm going to use super glue to glue it with. I could use epoxy, but I think super glue would be easier. This is going to be all about positioning that thing. Epoxy would be more forgiving for positioning it. But there it is positioned. Okay. Can't tell if the camera's focusing properly. It is. And you can tell that's going to really add to that side. When I'm done with that, it fell on the floor. When I'm done with that, I'm going to get some black styrene sheet, build a light box behind it, put a green LED behind it so it glows green. Then I can finish my wiring and seal it up. I'm going to power this thing with a USB port. And there's a USB port. Okay. So I got to figure out how to mount this thing in there. I know this slides over. I don't know which way it slides over. But anyhow, that slides over. I think you put this in through the hole and then they put this end over it and it snaps in place. So I got to figure out where I'm going to put the USB port so I have power to it and no batteries. And that was a big thing I didn't like about this thing was the batteries. All right, I'll be back in a little while. All right, I'm trying to get the camera to focus, but you know, these cameras, their autofocus is notoriously bad. Looks like it's doing an okay job, but it's trying to focus on everything but what I want it to. There we go. I got that glued in. And I got it glued in exactly where I want it. Okay? And I think that's going to add a lot to this guy. An awful lot. One of the things that really got me is how thick this plastic is. I'm pretty sure this thing's vacuum formed. But, wow, they used a lot of heat on that plastic to vacuum form it. I mean, they had to have. But that is glued in. It's in place. Unless someone really plays with it, it's going to stay there. And I now have my green screen on the side. So tomorrow I get a little light box, clean all the dust out of here, wire in the last LED, and then start wiring, final soldering work, wiring up the USB port. I got to look up which side is positive, which side is negative on the USB, so I get it wired in here correctly. But once I get that done correctly, I can seal it up and be done. Finally, after what, a year? All right, well, this one's almost done.